Today we're going to talk about Japan's changing economic system during and after the Meiji Restoration period, and specifically about how Japanese policy led to the creation of the Zaibatsu, and how the Zaibatsu affected the economic landscape of Japan. To understand the Zaibatsu rise to power, we must talk about the industrialization period that began in the Meiji era. At the beginning of the Meiji Restoration, Japan adopted a policy of state-guided capitalism. During this period, Japan's government played a large role in their economy, creating, selling, and subsidizing industries to private buyers. These private buyers would purchase these industries at close to 11% of their real value. These buyers would become the Zaibatsu. Translated, the word Zaibatsu means financial clique. This name was given to them because each of the big four Zaibatsu had their own bank. Having a bank within the organization provided an easy source of funds, creating a stable internal source of cash that could help fund their ever-expanding business empires. This means that the Zaibatsu would never need to go out of house to get funds or loans. The Zaibatsu were vertically and horizontally integrated, owning everything from the mines and fields where the raw materials were sourced to the distribution channels that supplied their goods to stores. But who were the Zaibatsu? From the beginning of the Meiji Restoration to the end of World War II, Japan would see the rise of several super powerful Zaibatsu, the biggest of which were called Big Four. Two of the Big Four Zaibatsus were established in the Edo era. The first Edo era Zaibatsu was Sumitomo. Established in 1585 by the Sumitomo clan, they prospered from the trade of copper and other goods and metals. They would later venture into forestry, coal mining, construction, machinery production, and electrical cables. The second Edo era Zaibatsu is Mitsui. They had close ties with the government, which was a big asset to them during the Meiji period. It comprised some 270 companies. The Mitsui group would enter many different markets, including cement, petrochemicals, commerce, construction, energy, engineering, finance, and insurance, and even real estate. The other big four Zaibatsu were created in the Meiji era. The first Meiji era Zaibatsu was Mitsubishi, translated as Three Diamonds. Established in 1870, they started out as a shipping company. They later diversified into coal mining to secure a stable source of fuel for their shipping enterprise. By the end of the 19th century, Mitsubishi would command large segments of the shipping and boating industries, including government shipping and the mail service. Yasuda, established in 1876, were the business arm of the Yasuda clan. Yasuda was the smallest of the four main Zaibatsu, but would play a significant part in Japan's financial industry by creating many insurance companies and by handling tax collection for the Japanese government. Yasuda gained power by capitalizing on a large time delay between when they collected taxes and when the Japanese government requested the funds. Yasuda would collect taxes as fast as they could and would use the collections to invest in the stock market for a quick turnover.
Now Japan, afraid of invasion either militarily or economically, needed to become an industrial powerhouse to stay free from the encroaching influence of the West. At the end of the Edo era, Japan didn't have time to let free markets take hold and grow naturally. Japan's government needed to speed up the process. State-guided capitalism helped Japan get a leg up into the Industrial Revolution, while other Asian countries struggled to get ahead of other larger Western economic powers. The Zaibatsu let Japan invest its limited resources into a few extremely efficient firms. The pre-war success of the Zaibatsu set Japan up for a highly successful leap into imperialism. And after Japan took over much of Germany's holdings in Asia during World War I, the Zaibatsu would let Japan's economy reap full rewards from their takings. This massive expansion of land, resources, and economic power would lead to an expansion of Japan's merchant fleet and trade that would establish Japan as the economic power of Asia. As Japan left World War I, the top three Zaibatsu controlled over 28% of Japan's total assets. And by the start of World War II, the big four Zaibatsu alone had direct control over more than 30% of Japan's mining, chemical, and metals industry, with almost 50% control of the machinery and equipment market, and also had a significant part of the foreign commercial merchant fleet and 70% of the commercial stock exchange. The Zaibatsu were not only large in their economic markets, but they were also heavily influential in the political sphere of Japan. The history of the Zaibatsu is littered with political favoritism and corruption. Much of this will lead to the eventual downfall of the Zaibatsu. As politics veered away from public concern and increasingly became militaristic, the Zaibatsu ties with government would become closer and closer to the Japanese military. The Rikken Minseto party had heavy ties with not only Mitsubishi, who basically controlled Japan's boating industry, but also the Japanese Navy. Not only that, but the Rikken Sayukai political party, who had close ties with the Japanese Imperial Army, was seen as a direct hand of the Mitsu Zaibatsu. Even long before the Japanese surrender that would inevitably lead to the dissolving of the Zaibatsu, the writing was on the wall. The close, sometimes direct ties with the military and government created concern amongst the populace about the Zaibatsu's true power. This distrust escalated in 1932 when the then Director General of Mitsu was assassinated by a member of the League of Blood, an extremist group that set out to murder corrupt politicians and businessmen. In a way, this was the beginning of the end. While far from the end of the Zaibatsu, the testimony of Inoue Shiro, the leader of the League of Blood, struck a chord with many Japanese citizens who, while disappointed in his methods, seemed to mirror Inoue's feelings of separation of government and business. After World War II ended, America would dissolve the Zaibatsu through several pieces of legislation. In all, 1,200 companies and 56 individual members of Zaibatsu families had their assets frozen and transferred to what was known as the Holding Company Liquidation Commission. This marked the end of the Zaibatsu.